Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of a World Panorama, where we get you a complete roundup and analysis of the biggest international news stories that unfolded this week. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. Let us start the program with this week's top headlines. Two Pakistani policemen killed in an attack on the Chinese Consulate in Karachi. All three terrorists gunned down in the attack claimed by separatist insurgent group Baluchistan Liberation Army. Hours later, suicide bomber kills at least 25 at a market in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. One of the deadliest attacks in Afghanistan this year, at least 55 killed in a suicide attack in a hall in Kabul. Most of the dead include religious scholars who had gathered at a ceremony for the Prophet Muhammad's birthday. Japanese car maker Nissan removes Carlos Ghosn as its chairman. The giant of the car industry, Ghosn, was arrested after allegations of financial misconduct. Will the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance endure? And a town of Paradise devastated by deadliest wildfire in California's history. Northern Camp Fire nearly contained. Death toll increases even as evacuees spend Thanksgiving in parking lots. Our top story this week is from Pakistan, where two Pakistani police officials were killed in an exchange of fire near the Chinese Consulate in Karachi on Friday. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan has ordered a complete inquiry into the attack. Three gunmen tried to break into the consulate building. All the attackers were killed in an exchange of gunfire with the security forces. An outlawed militant organization, the Baluchistan Liberation Army, has claimed responsibility for the attack that opposes Chinese projects linked to its Belt and Road Initiative in resource-rich Baluchistan. China has also strongly condemned the attack, adding that the attack will not negatively affect the construction of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Meanwhile, in another attack, a powerful bomb blast ripped through a busy market outside a religious seminary in Pakistan's restive Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, killing at least 25 people and injuring over 35 others. Now, the two attacks are likely unconnected, but they underline the security challenges Pakistan faces, including those from separatists and the Pakistani Taliban based in the northern border regions. Meanwhile, India has also strongly condemned the terrorist attack on the Chinese Consulate in Karachi. In a tweet, Ravish Kumar condoled the loss of lives, and he wrote that there can be no justification whatsoever for any act of terrorism. All right, let's get more updates and perspective on that story. We have with us Mr. Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, joining us. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us on Rajya Sabha TV. Sir, would like to know from you, how do you look at this attack on the Chinese Consulate in Karachi by the Baluchistan Liberation Army, considering that this is not the first attack on Chinese by Baloch rebels? Yes, do you think that really exposes the risks and the fallouts of the Pakistan-China business relations?
Well, Pakistan-China relationship is supposed to be one of the strongest in the region. And Pakistan has been going all out to give as much space as possible, despite all kinds of discomfort within Pakistan, especially in Baluchistan and Pakhtunkhwa provinces, that their territories are being used for China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, but without any participation of the local people.
Yes.
Most of the contracts have gone on either to the Chinese or to the Punjabis. And therefore, there is a feeling that it is the ruling class in Pakistan which is strengthening its hold over the territories, including Baluchistan. And so for a very long time, the Baluch people have been fighting for a greater say in the running of their very sparse province, but very, very rich in mineral resources. And it also provides that external connectivity via Gwadar to the Middle East. And therefore, those people feel that once the China-Pakistan corridor is built completely, they would be totally ruined and it will be total colonization of the Baluch land. They have generally been mounting protest marches in New York, in UK and in Switzerland, etc. And whenever international meetings take place. However, that has not had much of an impact. So they have started carrying out through this Baluchistan Liberation Army these attacks on the Chinese and on the others to discourage them from coming into Pakistan. It's a different matter that Pakistan feels that it is the neighboring countries which have been encouraging these terror attacks in Pakistan. This has happened again and again. Whenever there are terror attacks on Pakistani assets, immediately the finger is pointed towards either Afghanistan or Iran or India. And India has repeatedly said that when it wants to attack Pakistan, it has carried out surgical strikes and has informed the world about it.
Absolutely.
It is the Pakistanis who have been mounting these attacks in the neighboring countries' territories, and that's how SAARC summit has not made much progress. Because so many countries don't want to give Pakistan the chance to hold a summit when terrorists are running freely within the territory and also are being encouraged by the Pakistani establishment.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about the fact how the local people in Baluchistan really have not been able to benefit really from the CPAC, all the construction, the infrastructure, the projects that are going on there. But there are also reports about the signification of this area, the Baluchistan area. There have been reports of Chinese influence, trying to influence the locals there. So do you think that issue, that simmering tension has also led to these circumstances?
No, there is no doubt that Pakistan government is encouraging its people to learn Chinese and to be more kind to the Chinese people, because they have already mounted more than 15 to 20,000 Pakistani troops to help the security of the Chinese nationals in Pakistan. But it's not going to be enough. Therefore, the Pakistan and China, they are both trying, firstly, to contact these terrorist organizations directly to influence them. So we do not know whether this will work out for Baluch National Liberation Army also or not. But what we know that with the other groups, whether it's Al-Qaeda, whether it's Taliban, whether they are the various organizations acting against India and elsewhere, the Chinese are trying to build direct contact with them so that at least the Chinese personnel in Pakistan are not harmed. And we know that the Pakistanis, all said and done, they call themselves the country meant for Islam. And there are Islamic forces which are trying to take over Pakistan. And they know that China has become a prison house for many of the Muslim communities living in China. So that's the additional element, apart from what the Baluch nationalists are saying, that Pakistanis have been always killing them with impunity.
In general, in Pakistan, there have been voices, including, the economists there, who are questioning the CPAC. They're saying that CPAC is only benefiting China, and they're also worrying about the repayment of loans. Those voices are also now going to, speak up more after this attack that has happened.
Well, Pakistan calls itself a democracy, but it is not really a democracy. So there is not likely to be a change of Pakistani government policy towards their alliance with China, unlike what is happening in the other countries, which are more democratic than Pakistan, whether it's Malaysia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka or Maldives, etc. There are voices which say that, look, Chinese are turning debt into equity and getting their lands and their assets at a very cheap price. But in Pakistan, these will remain isolated voices. Pakistan government is constantly mounting the campaign that these are the neighboring countries who are unhappy about the great progress which is being made in Pakistani infrastructure development with the Chinese help. And they are tom-tomming that they got $6 billion from Saudi Arabia. They got about a similar amount, though they kept it secret under the Chinese request. And now they are saying that they are likely to obtain a similar amount from the UAE. So therefore, they feel that, look, they don't care about IMF and world institutions and credibility of their performance. What they need is the strong support from countries like China, Saudi Arabia and UAE, whether on Islamic cause or whether because they are providing the economic corridor to China.
Absolutely. So indeed, Pakistan thought that CPAC would help improve the country's economy and infrastructure, boost economic growth in the country. But little did it know that this has actually opened up Pandora's box, leaving the economy struggling and also Pakistan being pushed into the arms of the International Monetary Fund. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and sharing your perspective on that big story. Thank you so much. And also this week, Afghanistan witnessed one of its deadliest attacks this year, with at least 55 killed in a suicide attack inside Kabul banquet hall that was hosting a gathering of religious scholars. It drew widespread condemnation in the country and abroad, with the United Nations describing the attack as an atrocity. President Ashraf Ghani declared Wednesday a national day of mourning for the victims of the attack, which he described as an unforgivable crime. While there was no immediate claim of responsibility, Afghanistan's chief executive, Abdullah has pointed the finger of blame at the Taliban. Now, this comes as a blow to Donald Trump administration's strategy in Afghanistan, as American military officials had made defending major urban centers such as Kabul from the Taliban as its priority.
Another devastating suicide attack in Kabul this week. More than 55 people were killed and at least 90 others injured when a suicide bomber blew himself up inside a wedding hall in the Afghan capital. The victims included religious delegates from various parts of the country who had gathered at the wedding hall to celebrate the birth anniversary of Prophet Muhammad on Tuesday. The explosion left body parts strewn all over the floor and copies of Qurans scattered around burnt furniture.
Nobody ever heard of any attack on Prophet Muhammad's birth anniversary in the past. Attacking on Prophet Muhammad's birth ceremony is an inhuman act.
Afghan authorities struggling to identify the group behind the suicide bomb attack after the Taliban denied any responsibility.
An investigation is ongoing since yesterday, and still our teams are inside the hotel trying to find out details about the attack.
The incident has once again served to underscore what is now a growing consensus, that the United States is making no progress towards ending the 17-year-old war there. On the 19th of this month, the U.S. Defense Department's Office of Inspector General released a gloomy report on the fight in Afghanistan for the second quarter in a row, citing little progress towards reconciliation. In the midst of increasing violence, the U.S. envoy to Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, held 3 days of talks with the Taliban and Afghan government in Qatar over the weekend. He hoped that 20th April 2019, the presidential election date, would be used as a deadline to achieve a peace agreement.
I know that the government of Afghanistan wants peace. The Taliban are saying that they do not believe that they can succeed militarily, that they would like to see the problems that remain resolved by peaceful means, by political negotiations. And I know that the international community, particularly the United States, on behalf of which I'm speaking, also would like that.
But the peace talks have sputtered and stalled in the past. In June, a brief ceasefire was declared between Afghan government and the Taliban over the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr. But thereafter, the Taliban did not reply to Afghan President Ashraf Ghani's order to implement a second ceasefire. Russia, on its part, has also been looking to broker peace. A fortnight back, it held consultations with delegates from Taliban and members of Afghanistan's High Peace Council, as well as senior diplomats from India, Iran, China, Pakistan and the United States and some other regional countries. But so far, no concrete result is seen.
Terrorist vanguards represented by Islamic State are taking steps to turn Afghanistan into the foothold of their expansion into Central Asia and our wider region as a whole. It is the aim of all our countries and all active structures in the region to help the Afghans to uproot this terrorist threat.
Meanwhile, the picture on the ground is increasingly dismal. In addition to the most recent Taliban attacks, the Islamic State militant group continues to mount deadly assaults in its stronghold in Nangarhar province in Kabul. There has been an uptick in both civilian and Afghan military casualties. Humanitarian needs also grew more acute during the last quarter. The United Nations reported that drought put 3.5 million Afghans in need of urgent food assistance. And between the drought and the ongoing conflict, the population of internationally displaced Afghans approached 5 lakh this year. At the moment, relief and peace nowhere in sight. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to the other top story this week. It is a fall from grace which is as brutal as it is sudden. Nissan has removed auto industry legend Carlos Ghosn as its chairman following his arrest earlier this week on suspicion of financial misconduct at the Japanese car maker. Ghosn was the architect of the world's biggest auto alliance between Nissan, Renault, Mitsubishi, and his ouster has left the partnership hanging in the balance. Ghosn had forged for himself a unique role as an invaluable conduit between the Japanese and the French ever since he rescued Nissan from bankruptcy in 1999 and in so doing became a superstar of Japanese business. Carlos Ghosn was until Monday a titan of the global car industry. He was ousted after nearly 2 decades at the helm of a Japanese car maker Nissan. The board's decision to oust Ghosn came after his shock arrest following allegations of financial misconduct. Ghosn was detained by Tokyo prosecutors following an internal investigation at Nissan that accuses Ghosn of underreporting his salary and using company assets for personal use. The board also voted to remove senior executive Greg Kelly.
Can't quite work out what happens next. Obviously in Japan, now as far as they're concerned, he's broken the rules, but we don't know enough of his insider arrangements and what he's had. There have always been these ideas that he's been spending a huge amount of money.
Nissan's chief executive Hiroto Saikawa will take over as interim chairman as the company's board is looking at a permanent successor to Ghosn. Ghosn's ousting has raised question mark on the Nissan-Renault-Mitsubishi alliance. The 64-year-old was the architect of the alliance. In 2016, the Japanese Franco alliance of Nissan and Renault enlarged in 2016 to include Japan's Mitsubishi Motors. Ghosn was in fact pushing for a deeper tie-up. It is noteworthy that together Nissan, Renault and Mitsubishi make 1 of every 9 cars sold around the world. They employ more than 470,000 people in nearly 200 companies. However, Japan and France have reaffirmed their support for the alliance.
I want to stress again my attachment as key shareholder to the alliance between Renault and Nissan. Faced with today's technology challenges among large industrial car makers, such as electric cars and autonomous cars, in order to finance innovation in these new technologies, we need powerful and strong industrial groups.
Japanese prosecutors have yet to formally indict Ghosn on any charges. At the moment, Ghosn remains at Tokyo Detention Center, a Spartan facility known for its rules and restrictions, a stark contrast to Ghosn's comfortable, globe-trotting lifestyle. The extent and suddenness of Ghosn's fall from grace is astonishing. His hero status was so big that his life was serialized in one of Japan's famous cartoon comic books. In a 2011 poll of people the Japanese would like to run their country, Ghosn came 7th in front of Barack Obama, who was positioned 9th. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. The designer duo behind luxury Italian brand Dolce & Gabbana have issued an apology to the Chinese in an effort to stall a growing backlash against their label. Now, this after the brand went off Chinese e-commerce market for a racism controversy. The developments come after Chinese e-commerce sites removed Dolce & Gabbana products amid a growing backlash against an advertising campaign that was decreed as racist by celebrities and on social media. The ads featured a Chinese woman struggling to eat spaghetti and pizza with chopsticks, sparking outrage online for the narrator's condescending tone and blatant mockery of Chinese culture. The incident also forced the Italian brand to cancel its Shanghai fashion show. The blunder was compounded when screenshots were circulated online of a private Instagram conversation in which the designer Stefano Gabbana allegedly used strong words to insult China and Chinese people. The brand, however, said that Gabbana's account has been hacked. Chinese Foreign Ministry, though saying that the issue was not a diplomatic one, was critical of the affair. Asia, including China, is a huge market for Dolce & Gabbana, with a market share of nearly 30% of its total sales. The death toll from the devastating wildfire in Northern California rose to 86. The number of people listed as unaccounted for in the deadliest and the most destructive fire in the state history jumped to 1,276. However, rains have helped to extinguish the fire, but the moisture is also turning ash into thick paste and hindering the search operations. Here is a detailed report.
A pair of deadly wildfires that have been burning across both ends of California have claimed at least 86 lives and left hundreds missing in the wake of monstrous blazes. 95% of the fire has been contained after it destroyed more than 13,000 homes. The blaze started on November 8th. Maximum number of death toll was recorded from Camp Fire in Northern California's Butte County, making it the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in the state's history.
So I've never seen anything like this as far as fires go. I've been to a number of hurricanes too. I'm on a swiftwater rescue team that goes and deploys to those. That doesn't even compare to this. This is such a large-scale area.
With first significant rain in Northern California, firefighters made progress in containing the fire, and officials continued their account for residents. But it has also raised risk of flash flooding that could hinder teams searching for human remains. The rains, which in some areas were likely to be accompanied by winds of up to 72 kilometers per hour, raised risk of ravines turning into rivers of mud. The fire has burnt across 62,000 hectares of Sierra foothills and is 85% contained.
Inevitably, the weather makes the work a little more difficult, a little more grueling, trying to get this done. Slippery ground, rough terrain. Just the weather compounds things, but the work continues.
Considering the weather conditions, local authorities have warned people of the risk of possible flash flooding and mudslides triggered by the rain.
We're under flash flood warnings right now, and we've sent those alerts out to the folks. And what that means is the amount of rainfall, since we're on the top of a ridge, the amount of rainfall, it's got to go somewhere. So there's potential for flooding down in those lower areas.
US President Donald Trump continued his tour of wildfire devastation in California by visiting the iconic Southern California town of Malibu. Earlier, Trump visited the devastated small community of Paradise in Sierra foothills, where authorities say the remains of at least 71 people have been recovered.
Well, we've been talking about that on the ride over, and I think we're all on the same path. We do have to do management, maintenance, and we'll be working also with environmental groups. They've really, I think everybody's seen the light, and I don't think we'll have this again to this extent. We're going to have to work quickly. But a lot of people are very much, there's been a lot of study going on over the last little while, and I will say I think you're going to have, hopefully this is going to be the last of these, because this was a really, really bad one.
The Woolsey fire, which has torched off a total of 96,949 acres of Ventura and Los Angeles counties, was up to 98% contained by Tuesday night, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, also known as CAL FIRE. The Woolsey fire has been blamed for the deaths of at least 3 people, and 3 firefighters sustained injuries while battling the flame. US Health Department has declared a public health emergency in California and have also issued smoke advisories for the affected regions. Residents have been urged to stay indoors as much as possible and to wear a properly fitted mask when venturing outside. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And finally, a portrait of a British writer Charles Dickens that went missing for 150 years will go on display in London this week after being found in a market in South Africa. The miniature watercolour and ganache portrait by Margaret Gillis was painted in 1843 as Dickens in his early 30s was writing A Christmas Carol. The portrait was last on a public display in 1844 at the Royal Academy of Arts in London, only to disappear sometime after. The portrait was found late last year in South Africa by an unknown buyer and has been restored. London art dealers of Philip Mould and Company now own the painting, which will go on display at the Charles Dickens Museum this week. So take a look at this lost and found portrait of Charles Dickens and the Charles Dickens Museum as we take your leave. Thanks for watching.
This lost face of such an important man in our literary culture suddenly returning from the dust of Africa, from the heat and the dust.